Hi, everybody. Mr. Morris here, talking about this week major battles of World War II. We've talked a lot about the causes of World War II. We've talked about the leaders in World War II, the Allies and the Axis. And then last week we went all through the different types of weapons of World War II. Now, this week we're talking about major battles and decisions made in World War II. Well, the Japanese had a strategy. And after Pearl Harbor, Japan invaded the Philippines and Indonesia and planned to invade both Australia and Hawaii. That was their goal. Japan hoped America would just accept Japanese domination of the Pacific rather than wage a huge bloody war to reverse the Japanese gains they'd already had. The British were fighting the Germans and Italians in North Africa. Now, why were they fighting in North Africa? If all the fighting is up in here, what's going on down here? Why would somebody want to come down in North Africa and bring the war to a separate continent? Well, the problem there would be because of oil. That's where the oil was for gas and production of other things they could use in the war. Now, Adolf Hitler put a lot of his German Nazi Panzer tanks and things into the northern Africa, in order to seize control of it, have an unlimited supply of fuel. But the Allies beat Adolf Hitler and stopped him from these Middle Eastern oil supplies. The Battle of El Alamein, the German forces threatening to seize Egypt and the Suez Canal, were defeated by the British. Now we move to the Battle of Stalingrad. German forces were besieged in the Russian city of Stalingrad. The Germans were moving into Russia and fighting Russia. It was a long, cold, bitter battle, one of the worst casualty rates in human history. Hundreds of thousands of German soldiers were killed or captured in the month-long siege. And there's a great color picture of the destruction there. Germany's defeat at Stalingrad prevented Germany from seizing Russian oil fields. Again, we're talking about fuel, because fuel is what keeps war going, and was the turning point against Germany in the east, pushing into Russia. The bloodiest battle in human history. They believe that 1.5 million people died in this battle, the bloodiest battle in the history of the earth, the Battle of Stalingrad. So now we're going to talk D-Day. The American and the Allied troops under General Eisenhower landed on the German-occupied France, right along here, and they invade a largest amphibious battle in history. This is amphibious, means moving water, boats, tanks, planes, everything across the channels to France, right here in this area. Here's a picture of Omaha Beach of June 6, 1944, of these men heading to the beachfront coming off of a carrier. Despite intense German opposition, and this is a German gunner right up here overlooking, shooting down at the Allies that are coming aboard, coming on the beach. The American casualties landing succeeded, and the liberation of Western Europe from Hitler had begun. The Battle of Midway is an interesting battle because Midway is right over in here. And Midway was an American base where there's a refueling station. And again, there's the word fuel. You need fuel in order to keep your machinery and your weapons of destruction moving. Like last week, we talked about tanks and planes and so forth. If the Japanese destroyed the American base on Midway, they would have been able to invade Hawaii. Okay? The Americans had broken the Japanese code and knew the attack was coming. Though outnumbered, the U.S. won the battle. Again, I'm going over these pretty quickly. You'll have a lot more in-depth work this coming week on these different battles and video clips and so forth. Finally, with Midway, this American victory ended the Japanese threat to Hawaii and began a series of American victories which brought the war closer to Japan. Not so much closer to American lands, but to Japan, the turning point. Iwo Jima and Okinawa, big battles where Americans invaded Japanese held islands. Though America won these battles, they were incredibly costly in American and Japanese lives. Showed in America that the Japanese intended to fight fiercely for every square mile of Japanese territory. Even Japanese civilians were armed with swords and bows and arrows and would rather commit suicide than surrender to the Americans. Over the course of World War II, American and German scientists were both working on developing nuclear weapons, or a bomb that would end everything and stop the war. America developed them first. As the war winded down, it became clear that America had to defeat Japan. The US would have to invade Japan itself. This was scary because the casualties for both the Americans and the Japanese would be horrendously high if America had to invade Japan. It would be a massive war in which the casualties on the American side would be very costly. America decides instead to use the atomic bombs on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Two bombs were dropped August 6th and August 9th of 1945. Tens of thousands of civilians were killed in both cities. Shortly after the bombs dropped, Japan surrenders, avoiding the needs of the American invasion. So I kind of glossed over several things. There's the Battle of Dunkirk in there, which happens very early in the war, uh, having to do with the Germans hoping to end Britain and take England from the shores of France. So we're going to get more into this week. I hope you guys are ready for an exciting week of information on battles of World War II.